Are you dialing in from the left coast tonight?
I am on the right coast tonight. I live in New York City.
I didn't realize that. I thought that you were an LA person as a result of all the Playtone work, or did you move back east?
I moved back east right after we shot The Elephant in the Room, which was a little under 2 years ago.
Got it. So Elephant in the Room. Did you know that you wanted to direct it beyond writing it?
Yeah, for a few years now, I've been writing scripts with the intention of eventually raising the money to direct one of them as my feature directing debut. I've been a screenwriter for many years, going back to
Yes.
Band of Brothers and other projects with Tom Hanks. But this one, I decided I really was gonna raise the money. I mean it this time. Like the other ones didn't quite happen, for different reasons. I didn't fully pull the trigger, but yeah, the whole idea was a low budget contained movie to write and direct.
So the movie takes place in 2020, 2021, around there. How long was it from conceptualizing it to actually finishing it?
Probably about 3 years from first writing to then raising the money, which took over a year, maybe a year and a half, and then shooting it and then post production and stuff over the last. It's been about 10 months since no, 10 months, 22 months since we shot the movie. Sorry, but post production took about a year, so maybe 3, 4 years total.
Got it. What was the hardest part for you? I know that's kind of a general question, but you were there from beginning to end on the whole thing, writing, directing, actually there on the set, post-production, and now hyping it up. So one man shop in a lot of respects.
True, although I've been lucky that I've formed a nice team along the way. A big part of that team has been a group of organizations and individuals that really care about like bridging societal divides, which of course the movie is about that. It's a red
Yeah.
blue rom-com. And so the team has helped a lot in finding me in both with money and with guidance and with networking and sort of every aspect of it. But yeah, probably the hardest part was being alone on it for a long time and trying to raise the money. Because in the beginning, you're like, you need so much money to make a movie, and where are you going to find it? And waiting and trying to figure out how to pitch it and where to pitch it and how to raise the money.
It reminds me of South Park in the sense that both sides think that the South Park guys are on their side based on the views presented, but the truth is they're in the middle and all that. I'm not asking where you are, but I'm asking, have you found that people reviewing it or watching it felt that way where they went, "Oh, he's on our side."
That's an interesting point. I mean, look, it's just about to come out, so it hasn't been widely seen yet. We did do some test screenings of earlier cuts of the movie, and so we got some feedback there that made me think, okay, certain people think that I must be this or that. Um, uh, but yeah, I think the vibe of the movie is it's easy to think he's on our side. It's also easy to think he's on the other side. Like it's not clear. It's very much meant to be not polarizing itself and to depict both sides in a sympathetic and believable way, which, I wasn't necessarily able to do that on my own in the early drafts of the script because I did come from one side. But
Hmm.
these organizations helped me a bit by reading drafts of it and saying, you know what, to present this character that's different from you, what if you did this and that? And help me to shape it in such a way that it's, I guess, a compliment to me if you can come away going, I'm not really sure, and it doesn't matter. And I think both sides are portrayed with some respect because that's kind of the whole point. Not to say the leaders or the policy positions necessarily are being respected, but an individual human being that voted for somebody on a
Hmm.
human level, that's really what it's about is two people. Can we make it work just as a human relationship, even if we're never going to agree and we aren't trying to come together on politics?
When you say earlier drafts, what evolved in the script over time?
Yeah. A lot of it was about making it a softer, sweeter, romantic comedy where you hopefully are more and more invested in each of the characters and in the relationship. I think in early drafts it was a little harder edged. I think, the female character was more kind of like unlikable, maybe, like sort of delusional, uh, smug a little bit. And um and the other guy wasn't as well formed in terms of where he was coming from and what his views were. And I had a grandmother character, so that this guy had this other generation who had a more extreme version of a certain political viewpoint, and he was a little more moderate version of that. So
Right.
different things that would moderate how the characters would be perceived and making it kind of like a bit more endearing. That was really the main thrust of the rewrites over time.
These days, I can't easily tell where movies are made except by looking for the tax credit things and the
Mhm.
credits, that kind of a deal. Where was Elephant in the Room filmed?
So we shot it in Thousand Oaks, California, which is a suburb of LA, at a friend's house, actually, who offered up their home, and every single thing in the movie was shot in their house, even though it pretends like it's different houses and so forth. And because it was set during COVID, where people were still kind of like locked down a bit. That was a
Hmm.
little easier to make realistic, because it's like these people like don't leave their homes that much. They don't go on dates at restaurants. Like, the date is a guy brings a coffee over and they sit in the backyard with masks, kind of thing. So yeah, Thousand Oaks.
And in terms of, it being a finished product and all that, you mentioned a couple of years in the whole process, independent financing. That was a long part of the process. But did the story exist in another form? In other words, was there a pre-draft where these characters evolved from, or is it a completely original idea?
It was an original idea. Yeah, it was just an idea I came up with a few years ago, and I kept rewriting it, but it's not that different from what the original idea was, and it
Hmm.
didn't change that much over the course of financing and ultimately deciding to make it. But there were definitely significant script improvements along the way, I think.
The people that you cast in the film, not a huge cast, of course. Were they friends or was it traditional casting?
It was a mix. So the Dominic Burgess, who plays Martin, the housemate, who's one of the three like lead characters, I had met and knew a little bit, and I wrote the role with him in mind in hopes that he would do it. And I was very relieved when he signed on. The two and the guy that plays the ex-boyfriend is only in one scene, but it's a pretty memorable scene on the phone. If you've seen the movie, he was the lead in a short film I did a few years ago, so I knew him already. But the two romantic leads I didn't know, and that it wasn't so much a traditional casting where I had people audition, because I didn't really have the money for a casting director to go through that whole
Right.
process. So instead, I had a couple of agents that were this particular agent at the Gersh agency who was sending me a lot of possibilities for these roles, who really made it his mission that he was going to cast this movie from their clients. And he kind of did it because he found me, and he sent me their reels, and I just watched their reels and watched other things they'd done. Like Alyssa Lamperis, who plays the lead, has a pretty big social media following and has done a lot of viral comedy content over the years. So I could watch, and
Hmm.
she also has a stand-up special on Peacock called No Bad Days. So I could see that stuff, as well as the reels showing her work in film and television. And I basically just offered them the roles based on seeing their work on those reels and those other places.
Got it. So this is a new film to us. To you, not such a new film. Are we allowed to know what's next, or we have to wait for the embargoes to lift and all that? Because hey, you're a creative guy, you create for a living, so we know there's stuff in the pipeline, of course.
I don't have anything lined up that's like for sure happening. I have a script I've written that I would potentially do another independent movie, maybe slightly bigger, but not that much bigger than this.
Hmm.
That's about a couple of brothers one of whom is a wheelchair user, and they're in their 20s, and their mother has just died, who has been the kind of caretaker, and now they're left just the two of them, and it's a very R-rated comedy. The older brother's kind of like a slacker who doesn't know how to take care of his brother that's in a wheelchair, who doesn't really want his brother taking care of him, but they're all each other has. So it's their story, and a couple of other characters that they get romantically entangled with in a kind of funny R-rated but with heart fashion.
I would you intend on producing and directing, not just writing?
Definitely directing. It's another low budget movie that I would direct myself, but I would love to not have to produce it. I would love to not have to be quite as hands-on in the fundraising and all of that, and wear quite as many hats. But we'll see where that goes.
So embracing the indie world. I say that because when you win an Emmy, when you've seen the top of the mountain, some people go, I got to get bigger, bigger, and bigger. And then other people go, I need to get back to my roots and actually control the projects that I'm working on. And it seems like the latter.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the evolution of a like creative career. I mean, you have ups and downs, and you have, sometimes champagne problems of like, oh,
Yeah.
people perceive me as this, but I really want to do that, and they're not hiring me for that, so I have to do it myself, So there's a lot of that can happen. At a certain point, I was like, as a writer, also, even though I have had some big credits and stuff, things that have been produced and won awards, I've also written a bunch of stuff that didn't get produced or didn't get sold or, projects that I wrote that didn't go anywhere, et cetera. And so as a writer, it's easy over time to get frustrated with I'm producing documents, and that's it. And so, at a certain point, I just decided my next act is I'm gonna, write and direct and like you said, control it, but also just make sure it gets made. And because I'll
Yep.
raise the money myself as opposed to trying to pitch it to a big streamer and it's a $20 million whatever plus project that's hard to get greenlit. I'll greenlight myself if I can just find this amount of money to make the movie with, which that's what this project has become, the elephant in the room.
You make a very good point about stuff not being made. The average person, I don't think, thinks about holding deals and pilot deals and things of that nature. So someone might go, well, Erik didn't work a lot in those years. And the reality is, no, you were working nonstop. It's just stuff didn't get made.
Yeah, and that's true for most screenwriters. I mean, I've never not been writing. I mean, I'm generating a couple of scripts a year on average of one sort or another. But if you look at
Yeah,
IMDb, there's years where there isn't there because that only shows what got produced and made it to audiences, right? So it's different from actors. Actors might work 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times in a year, and all of those are on IMDb,
yeah.
But writers' work a lot of times doesn't lead to produced finished product.
Sure. So moving on a little bit, when you're not busy with creating, what's your main passion or hobby? Where does the time go, Erik?
I probably need more hobbies. I play a little piano in a very amateur way.
Oh,
I have a dog. I have a wife. I moved to New York City because she's interested in writing musical theater and is very talented and is pursuing that. So we go see a lot of theater because it's part of her education as a writer. Now that we live in New York, we're
sure.
going to shows pretty often. And I'm lucky to have a couple of adult kids that live in New York, so I hang out with them when I can as well. So moving here was partly the one of the side benefits was I had some family, had some kids already here.
In terms of the piano, were you ever in bands?
I've never been in band. My wife has. She's a singer-songwriter and has been playing, had music her whole life. I've accompanied her a few times informally on gigs. I'm kind of like not quite professional level, more intermediate level. So, high school I fooled around with it with like bands that never went anywhere, but I've never really been a gigging musician. No, it's just been one-off things here and there.
Playing at the talent show or Battle of the Band stuff?
Didn't really even do that in high school. It was more like a group of friends and we get in our basement and we work up some songs and a few weeks later we broke up kind of thing.
Got it. So who would be some of the keyboard players that you went, that's why I'm playing in the first place?
Well, Steve Naive with Elvis Costello and the Attractions.
Wow, okay.
I think Keen is great. Keen is a keyboard driven band. I forget the name of their keyboard player. So it's a mix of influences, I suppose. Carole King, great pianist. Elton John, of course. Billy Joel.
Cool. Well, one last question for you, and then I let you go. And that's what's the last concert that you saw and or live Broadway show or theatrical presentation? Because you are in one of the entertainment meccas of the world these days.
Yeah, I haven't seen any concerts since I've been in New York City, but I've seen a lot of musicals. The last couple I saw were Dead Outlaw and Operation Mincemeat.
Okay, not bad, not too shabby. Hope you get some concerts in the repertoire. But bottom line, Erik, congrats on the new film. Looking forward to what's to come, and great to see you keeping independent cinema alive
Thank you so much.
single-handedly.
Really, I really appreciate you having me. Great talking to you.
Paltrocast.